so you mute your audio, so you can just listen and we don't hear you. Got it. And the gentlemen that jumped in, Tom, are Adam Jordan and Aaron Jelsna, and they're both Iraq and Afghanistan veterans.
Welcome, you guys.
They're out and about.
Adam, I'm going to try to call on you in the course of the next hour, just to say a few words about what you think about Douglas's work. How does that sound? Awesome. And your microphone will be muted until I call on you. And then you simply hold down your space bar on your computer, and that will make your mic live. So you will be hearing then what you're saying. Okay. I don't know what happened to those guys.
They're right there. They're the ones called Sinners and Winners.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Bob, why don't we get started slowly? We've got about a dozen or more people on here.
So, do you want to show the video?
No, let me just do a little introduction, and then we can show video number 1, and right after that, video number 2. Okay. Okay. And we'll save number 3 until a little bit later in the program. So, hi everybody. I think for everyone except our viewers in Hawaii, it's afternoon, and it's tax day for those of you who may have forgotten. Welcome to our first ever webcast from the Joe Rosenthal chapter of the Marine Corps Combat Correspondents Association. We have a program today that I'm very enthusiastic about, and I think you all will be too. My name is Tom Graves. Bob Vinson is the official host of the meeting today, and he's the technical brains behind all this. Bob's a professional videographer and filmmaker, and started out in the U.S. Air Force and then worked professionally for several decades. He will be trying to help you if you send in.
Yeah, it is, but it's fun. I always would say whenever I dress out of uniform, people say, "Oh, you're wearing."
Hi, Eric. Thanks for joining us. I'm the historian of the Joe Rosenthal chapter. Many of you know that I am a civilian, but I've been working with veterans for 20 years now, collecting their stories. For those of you who don't know about the Combat Correspondents Association, it's a national group of retired and active duty Marine Corps photographers, video people, writers, TV, and public relations personnel. Many of the members of our chapter fit that description. We have many others from different branches of the military, and 1 or 2 civilians like myself. And our chapter here in the Bay Area is called the Joe Rosenthal chapter because he was a former member of our chapter. And Joe Rosenthal, of course, took the famous photo of the flag raising on Iwo Jima. So we've dedicated our chapter the last several years into teaching about Joe and the legacy of his photo, and how it actually substantially helped our country during World War II. It raised a great deal of money, and it raised everyone's spirits when they saw that wonderful photograph. We have a website which we hope to show you later. It's very easy to remember. It's ussjoe.org. You can go on there, read more about Joe's history, and also sign our petition, which is an effort to honor Joe nationally. Let's see. Douglas Terrell. I know I'm going to mess up your name, Douglas, even though we went over that. Douglas Terrell?
No, Terrell, you said it right.
Terrell. Oh, okay, thanks. Is someone who I have not met except via telephone and email and now over the internet. From what I know, he's a very talented guy. He's a very passionate guy about his craft of the theater. And fortunately for me and for you guys, his passion is about the American military and its role in our nation's history. Douglas, of course, will be speaking more about what he does, how he got started in this field, what he's doing now, which is very exciting, and how audiences have been responding to his performances. And he has performed across the country, from New England to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., and several performances a year ago in California. Unfortunately, we did not get him to the Bay Area, but he performed in the Central Valley and I believe also in Southern California. So when we get this darn virus behind us, whenever that might be, we're going to try to get Douglas to the Bay Area, and I hope the rest of you around the country will have an opportunity to see his performance and perhaps bring it to your part of the country. So I'd like to start out, if our technology is working, by asking Bob to play 2 short videos. One is Douglas performing his one-man play, The American Soldier.
This is in Derry, New Hampshire.
Okay, this was a performance in New Hampshire that was nicely videoed.
Last year.
And then we're going to be seeing one more that I'll introduce. So Bob, you want to start that one?
Okay, we will see if it works first, okay? The audio.
I bet it will. Oh,
Yes. Do you hear it?
no, I do not hear it.
Okay, I'm gonna unplug my mic, see if that works.
Okay.
I'll try again.
This is all new to us senior citizens out here.
See that?
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Do you hear it?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Military is right on the back. What he said, he hit the nail on the head.
But it's important. He said that he's never served, but he's serving every day that he doesn't show up, because the passion and the commitment that he puts into research is almost like he was there. So he's one of us without ever being one of us.
I thought it was amazing for someone that hasn't been, isn't a veteran. He captured a lot of real feelings that you do have. The confusion of wanting to be with your buddies overseas and then wanting to be back home is very true, very powerful. Go to the show because it changed. It hit home. After 4 deployments, everything he said, the blah blah blah, about suicide, about the deaths overseas, and it just, some soldiers don't want to come. Some soldiers want to come home, and then yes, I want to go back. Everything just hit awesome. Thank you.
So we thought it was great. It was moving. I went through my dad and my parents, and it's so important for the next generation to know what the generations before them went through, and the generations that are still serving went through. The veterans do us a favor now by wearing the hats to let us know if they served, and they do a good job going over and shaking their hands. But I wanted them to know what they would do. This is really important to do. I think
This was an amazing evening, and I wish my husband could have been here. He served in the Navy in Vietnam and didn't talk about it a lot, but this would have been close to him.
the same longer. So I'm so happy. I got to see it. It was great. Thank you very much for bringing it to Gary, New Hampshire.
This is my second time seeing it. As I told Doug, there's always something new that I pick up out of it. A lot of personal meaning, especially a lot with suicide, lost friends. What he's doing is nice. This is the bigger plan. Keep on with it and reach more people because they need to see this.
Okay, I don't know about the rest of our participants. I had a hard time hearing that. It was kind of echoing for me. Was that what you heard, Douglas?
Yeah, that's okay. When do I start just sharing about how I started the play, and that'll help us get all connected.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Not a problem. So for all the vets who are here today, I thank you for your service and your families. That's always been the mission for me from day one of the conception. You know, I where I am today and where I started, I lose track now because the play has kind of grown into something that I've never would have expected. So I almost forget the very beginning of the history of it, because it's been almost close to 15 years since the idea came to me. It all started like everybody else. I was in the World Trade Towers when the second plane hit, and I came out and everyone was really patriotic, and I couldn't serve because I'm blind in my left eye. So I wanted to do something. And I started reading stories about vets who were struggling coming back, either financially or they were dealing with PTSD and they couldn't pay their bills. And there was a couple stories that really resonated with me. So I decided that, you know what, I'm going to write a veteran play. And I want to tell people, the goal was for people to understand what service really meant. That was what I really wanted people to understand. I wanted when people saw a veteran, they said, you know what, their fathers could be deployed, their mothers could be deployed, they could have lost a family member into combat. And I wanted people to understand that when you see a service person, you should really thank them. You should really understand the history behind them. It's just not a person wearing fatigues. And so I would go to the New York Public Library and I started researching, and, you know, where the play has grown has been something that I just could have never, ever in a million years imagined. I really thought that when I first did the play, it was going to be, you know, when I created it first, when I had the ideas of the letters, a lot of people thought I was nuts because I had a bunch of veteran letters and no one knew what to do with them. And I just got marinated with it. When I would go to the New York Public Library, the more I would read up about these stories, the more I just kept digging and digging and digging. And I fell into a rabbit hole, basically. You know, I started with the revolution, and then I was like, well, the idea was I was going to tell a bunch of revolutionary stories for people to understand the beginning of our country and why it's so important to remember our servicemen. And then those were kind of interesting, and I would read George Washington letters, and then I started kind of moving into the Civil War. I'm a big Civil War buff, and then, you know, I come across Vietnam, and then I started reading books, and there's literally, today everything's online, but back then, you know, you can go to the library and just literally check out books filled with nothing but veteran and family member letters, and it's a rabbit hole, basically. I mean, when you're reading about war, you know, you can go in a million directions. So when I first did it in 2014, I believe it was. 2013 was the first time I did it. It was like a little workshop. 2014, I think it was. It was a little workshop. I had struggled putting it together, and everybody told me no, and no one knew what to do with it. And I met with many directors, and I thought it was going to be a play. And there was a very famous playwright named Craig Lucas. He wrote Prelude to a Kiss, and we're friends. And I would talk to him, and I said, I want to tell this story so bad. I just don't know how to tell it, you know. And he said, you know, I think, Doug, what you have is a solo show. You don't have a play. You have a solo show. And at that time, I had never even thought about doing a solo show, because a solo show for an actor is basically a marathon, you know. And so it's a high bar to be able. If you've never done it before, you're like, I don't want to be on stage by myself for an hour and a half. I like to have another actor there for it. So if something goes wrong, I can blame him, or I can blame the director, or I can blame somebody else. when you're a solo show, you're the only person. But, you know, Craig basically said, no one understands this material. No one loves this material as much as you do. And the only way you're going to be able to do this is to do it all by yourself. So that was the beginning. And so I found a director through a long process of reaching out to people. And he said, I showed him a letter, and he liked what I did. And he said, you have any more material? And I said, yeah, I do. So we worked together and we crafted like a 20-minute version of it. And he said, we basically in the beginning, I remember the first rehearsal, he said, well, what do you want to do with this material? And I said, I just really, at this point, I've been marinating with this stuff for, 5-6 years. And I just want to get it up, and I want to do it. And I want to just, as an actor, I just want to give my message to what veterans are. So we said, all right. So we rehearsed and we worked on it. And we had, I submitted to a bunch of festivals, and all of them said no. This was again 2014, and a lot of them, they weren't really interested. New York is very jaded, for a lack of better words. So they weren't really interested in a veteran-themed play. This is a play about war. We're not really into that right now. So a lot of festivals basically told me no. Even I couldn't even get into a festival. So it wasn't until there was one festival on the Lower East Side called Mano a Mano. And when I had submitted to her, she told me no originally, but then she came back to me later, I can't remember when, but she came back later in the year, and she said, listen, someone had dropped out. I like to pair you up with someone. If you're off book, meaning you have all your lines memorized, I'd like to have you come out and do the play for Memorial. It was a Memorial weekend. It was one night. It was a Sunday night, I believe. No, it was a Monday night. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I told my director, hey, we got a yes. And so I was already prepared. And I remember going to the theater that day. Now, I always tell the story on podcast interviews and every time I talk about it, because it was a Monday night. It was raining. I didn't want to go to the theater. I was really nervous. I thought no one wanted to hear this material. I knew that no one was going to be in the theater. As an actor, when you don't want to go somewhere, no one else wants to go somewhere. And so there were 8 people in the audience. 3 of them were mine, 3 of them were hers, and 2 were some stragglers. And the 3 that I had was my director and a photographer and my photographer's assistant. So basically it was the smallest audience. So I did the play. It went really well. I felt really good on stage. And what I remember is afterwards, I got a standing ovation, and it really wasn't the standing ovation that was a big deal. It was the reaction by the audience. And as a performer, you can always feel when a piece of material resonates with people. And I felt that. I felt like the play had a voice. It was really weird. It was really eerie, but I felt like I remember finishing and thinking, there's something here. There's something bigger than I thought it was. And so at the end of the night, I was kind of wrapping up, and a sister of a fallen soldier who had gone to everlasting life, who died in Afghanistan, came up to me, and she was in tears, and she said, I hope you don't stop doing this. I hope you keep doing this, because this is very important. And I think you have a very powerful message here. And so that was the first time that I thought, maybe I'm onto something here. This is something really important. And what was really important is that my director saw the reaction, and he was interested. And his name is Patrick Lillis, and he's a well-known solo show director. And he said, you know what? I'm interested enough now to work on it, to make it bigger. So we expanded it to about 45 minutes at that time. He said, now what you need to do is find another festival to do it and see what the reaction is. So at that time, the New York Fringe Festival was going to be my next option, but it had closed down. They were going through some changes, and that's a big theater festival here in New York. It's Urinetown was developed there. Suzy Q was developed there. So, but they had closed down. They were trying to redefine themselves. So I didn't have a festival. So I had rehearsed and I had finished it, and I said, let's go all in. Let's get a set designer. Let's get a lighting designer, and I'll take it to this Edinburgh Festival Fringe in Scotland. And so the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, if anybody doesn't know, is in Scotland, and that's like the Super Bowl of theater festivals. A lot of Broadway shows go there to get their reviews, and then they come back, and then they go to the West End, and they come back to Broadway. It's kind of like the first stepping stone for shows to start developing the resume and exposing their audience. And to kind of give you an idea how many plays there are there, the whole city shuts down for about 3 to 4 weeks. I've done the festival twice. When I went, there was 3,500 shows, and it's 24/7. It's nonstop. You know, shows from Broadway everywhere, all over the world. Literally all over the world. So I said, you know, I'm going to go to Scotland. I'm going to do this play because I feel this is the only festival that I can get into it, and this is the only way for me to really test this material out. And my wife is Scottish, so I can kind of afford it because I can stay with my wife's family, and I know the city really well, and I've done the festival, so it felt really familiar to me. So I was kind of nervous about going up there because, you know, I'm an American taking a play called The American Soldier, and I'm going to Scotland. And so I went over to Scotland, but before I went to Scotland, I got fortunate because when I was invited to go to Scotland, I was also invited to perform it for 2 days here in New York on an off-Broadway theater. It's an invitation by New York plays that are going to Scotland. They're invited to this little off-Broadway kind of festival of plays. And so they invited me for 2 nights, and I was ready because I still hadn't gotten my sea legs, but I was ready. I had been rehearsing it, and I did the 20-minute festival, and I've been rehearsing with my director, and I was rehearsing already to go to Scotland. So when they invited me, I said, you know, let me use this as a test run before I go to Scotland. And so I got some luck, and you know, and my business, you need some luck. And there was a Huffington Post reviewer there. She had called me up, and she was reviewing all the plays that weekend. And she said, you know, I'd like to review your play. And I was like, that's not what I really wanted. Didn't really want a reviewer to come see my play. And she said, I'm really interested in the material. I liked your name, and so can I get a ticket? And so I said, yeah, of course, you know. So I did the play. We actually had a really good house both nights. And a lot of people who came the first night came the second night. And the reviewer loved it. She gave me a really great review. So that gave me some press to go to Scotland with, which I left a couple of weeks later. And when I got to Scotland, I think the first couple of days, we had like 4 or 5 people. And, you know, just to share what the Edinburgh Festival Fringe is, it's really hard to get an audience because there's 3,500 plays there. So, and you can see from horror to Broadways to musicals. So, you know, the audience has a plethora of choice there. It's a buffet of theater, of performing arts, and it's nonstop. And so it's really hard. So having reviews is really good because obviously people want to go to plays that are, you know, there's a lot of bad work there or unprofessional work there. So they want to go to, you know, if you're charging ticket prices, they want to go to plays that are actually good. So I had the Huffington Post review, so that helped me. And I was, by the end of the first week, the houses were getting half full. And that second week, I was nominated for an Amnesty International Award. I didn't even know about it until my director told me about it, who didn't travel with me. He says, "You've just been nominated for an Amnesty International Award." And once that got out, that was in all the magazines and all the press. We were full. We were sold out, which is a huge accomplishment. But again, I was really excited as an actor. I had a full house. You know, the play was successful. You know, what I thought was going to be a dud was not a dud. It was actually something people wanted to listen to. But again, over there, what started to happen was mothers and fathers whose sons in the UK had served and were struggling with PTSD. They were coming up to me, and they were very emotional, and they were crying, and they were sharing their stories with me. So, you know, this went on for about 3 weeks. We sold out every night. In fact, I'll never forget the last 2 nights, I had a line outside the theater, and everyone was just like, you know, what's this play about? You know, why are there people lining up to see this American do a play about American soldiers? So when I finished the run, you know, we got tons of reviews and press. I came back, and I thought that was the end of it, really. I thought that was, you know, I thought I had completed my mission as an actor and what the message that I wanted to say. I wanted to say thank you to servicemen and servicewomen and their families out there. But I'm a big social media guy and I'm an actor, and so I'm really present online. So people started hearing about it. And that's where the life began of the play. My first tour in the city was Houston. A friend of mine who I had acted with for many years was the head of marketing in a theater in Houston. He said, man, I want to bring you down here and I want you to do that play. And that became the beginning of what is now 17 cities and 13 states. And every time I would do the play, every time I do the play, I feel like that's really, every year I think this is the last year. No one's really interested in this. And every year I get more bookings and more bookings. And this year, until before COVID, I was scheduled to perform close to 6 to 7 times this year. And obviously COVID completely just knocked all of that down, and all my shows have been canceled. I still have a couple shows left on the books for New Orleans and Cape Cod and Bedford, New York, but I'd be surprised if they happen. But that really is the life of the play and why I did it. And now, the play's become so much bigger, and I've redeveloped it and I've sharpened it and I've added more material to it. And I'm still I'm hoping to add more material to it, because something that's happened after the end of the play is a lot of female vets have stood up who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they've always said, how come you haven't had a female veteran in the play, And I do females, I do men, women, and children. I do 14 characters. But when I started the play, and especially after 9/11, female vets weren't really talked about in the press, and we weren't hearing their stories. So recently, I interviewed 5, 6 female vets. One had a Bronze Star. I've interviewed a colonel, and I've been hearing their stories, and their stories are really amazing. So I'm hoping now in the future that I can add a character based on them to the play, because really what the American soldier is, I perform many dialects. I perform Hispanics. I perform guys from Boston all the way down to the South, in a Hispanic character that can be from anywhere. Men, mothers, and fathers, and it's really helped people to understand that the American soldier is a mosaic of people who have fallen in love with this country so much that they've been willing to put on the uniform, and some of them even willing to give the ultimate sacrifice. And that this country is very fortunate that it's had so many young men and women who are willing to do that. And that's the message. And to include a female veteran, I think would be the honest thing to do as well with the American soldier, because they have served and they have also given everlasting life. And so that's the play, and it's given back to me more than I could have ever thought in a million years. And I've met vets from all over the country, and even abroad in the UK, and I get emails and messages from Australia. I get emails and messages from Scotland, even from Ireland, try to bring this play here. We'd like to see this play, because the message is really universal. It's all about sacrifice and love of country. And that's how I really close the play. I close the play with a monologue saying, I do a character who talks about being an army, getting the Army Ranger tab. And he says, it's not, you realize that at the end, it's not really about you. It's about your country, but more importantly, it's about the men and women you serve with. And he ends, I'm part of Brotherhood now. And so that's really the play. And I think now, when we see what's going on, I think it's even more relevant now. I mean, what's been really inspiring is when the younger generation see the play, they always say, wow, I didn't know that history of America, which is crazy for us, because I would imagine all of us on this conference know, or on this video, we all know when Vietnam was. We all know about Iraq, Afghanistan. We all know World War I, World War II. We all know these things, but it's shocking how many people do not know these things. And that's been really inspiring. So the play, as much as it talks about brotherhood and sisterhood and love of country and the importance of service and the unwillingness to serve, it's also a history lesson. It's also America's story, because I do the revolution, and I talk about sacrifice from the revolution, Civil War, World War I, II, and on and on. And they are these conflicts that like a blanket made by Patches has made what the union is today. And so that's what I'll leave it there, and I'll let you guys ask any questions.
Well, thank you. A couple comments from here on what Douglas just shared with me. I know something about doing a creative work. Actually, I know a lot about doing creative work and trying to bring others to one's own appreciation for that. And it's not easy. And those of us who were in creative fields like photography or writing, most of the time you get turned down. And you have to have something special inside you to keep going back and not losing faith in something that you believe in yourself. So that in itself makes Douglas my sort of creative hero for sticking with it and coming out the other side of that years-long journey with a really incredible project to show for it. So that's number one. Number two is you're all welcome to send in questions. At the bottom of your screen, there's a tiny little thing that says chat, and you can send in a question, and we will compile them. And the last several minutes of our webcast, I'll pass those questions to, I'll compile them, pass those questions to Douglas for him to answer. I'd like to try one more video. This one is a little bit different. If I, let's see what it is, and whatever it is, I think this one is Douglas performing. And I apologize in advance. It's not a great compliment to him that we can't get the sound down. But let's try video number 2, Bob, and see how that sounds to us. And then I'll come back. I have a couple questions for Douglas, and we'll get a couple other people who've seen his production who can tell us their thoughts about it. So Bob, you're gonna play number 2? Okay, awesome. I think that's number 1 again, isn't it?
Number 1, yeah.
It looks stormy at Bob's house.
That's the same one.
Is it? Oh.
You know, the videos probably won't do much justice, I don't think.
Oh. Let's try one more. Try number 3.
This is a TV series inspired by the play. This is the trailer. I don't think anybody's hearing any audio.
No, I like the visuals though, so let's go through this, so that's okay.
Yeah, I can tell you, that's a Vietnam veteran. I had 17 veterans cast in this thing.
Wow.
It was a great project.
Oh. Oh, we're not getting any video, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it comes out black. It's like it's frozen.
Yeah. All right, let's turn that off. Let me ask Douglas a few questions, and then we'll hear from a couple other people. What we just saw 10 seconds of, while the rest of us have been sitting on our butts during the COVID crisis, Douglas has taken his play and turned it into a multi-episode TV series based on the play. Which surprised me when I started doing a little research for today. So Douglas, why don't we jump ahead to your TV series and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, but let me share a little bit about something else about the play, because I have Joe here and I have Adam and Aaron, and you know, one of the things that's been really amazing about doing the play, especially across the country, is the wide range of stories that I've been able to get exposed to. So I do the same story over and over on stage, in a way,